Republican lawmakers aim to change higher ed. John Rust at the Indiana Supreme Court, plus Mayorkas impeached, and more. From the television studios at WFYI, it's Indiana Week in Review for the week ending February 16th, 2024.
Indiana Week in Review is made possible by the supporters of Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations.
This week, the House Committee on Education heard over 3 hours of testimony on a bill that would change Indiana's tenure rules and put trustees appointed by the legislature on university boards. Republican Senator Spencer Deary's bill allows trustees to revoke tenure to faculty who fail to teach diverse viewpoints in their classrooms. Deary opened discussion of the bill in committee by chastising the media and IU President Pamela Whitten, who says the bill would put academic freedom at risk. Deary says his bill is not an attack on tenure and pointed to a clause that he says would protect professors for views expressed outside the classroom.
That is a big deal for tenured faculty in Indiana. And anybody who favors and understands the reasons why we have tenure should be supportive of that and celebrate that change.
Dozens of faculty, students, and officials from Indiana's public universities told lawmakers they disagree. IU history professor Jonathan Schlesinger drew parallels to his own study of communist China.
In the People's Republic of China, educators long ago lost their independence to political boards, and the result was brain drain.
Deary also faced harsh questioning from Democrats, including Representative Ed DeLaney.
You're requiring the professors, for example, in sociology or political science, to give a range of opinions and to be neutral, in effect. No. You are neutering, neutering, your faculty. That's what you're trying to do.
The committee could consider amendments and vote on the bill next week. Does tenure in higher education need reform? It's the first question for our Indiana Week in Review panel. Democrat Ann DeLaney, Republican Chris Mitchem, John Schwantes, host of Indiana Lawmakers, and Niki Kelly, editor-in-chief of the Indiana Capital Chronicle. I'm Indiana Public Broadcasting State House Bureau Chief Brandon Smith. Ann DeLaney, Deary has said higher education is not a welcoming place for conservative views, citing a study, I think it was a Pew study, that showed that conservative students feel like their views aren't welcome on campuses.
Really?
Is he right?
Really? No, he's not right. I mean, when you look at the people who testified in this case from the Kelly School and from Purdue, where I'm sure they have conservative students, I mean, we've spent 200 years as a state developing quality research institutions that are recognized around the world and have made a difference in millions of people's lives for the better. And this freshman senator, okay, this who's never been a professor, I might add, comes in and says, oh no, this is going to increase academic freedom. He's full of it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, when you're talking about feeling uncomfortable, there is choice in higher education. You can go to Bob Jones Institute if that's where you're comfortable, and that's the only thing you want out of higher education. But the idea that you have to advance all divergent ideas and talk about them, you know, whether it's that the Holocaust didn't exist, or that slavery was actually a benefit to Africans, or that all vaccines are bad, or that evolution is just a theory, you know, it is ridiculous. And to do this in a short session, when you have universal, as you did, opposition from all the professors and the administrators, shows just how out of touch this guy is. And I'm going to be interested to see. I know it's a safe Republican seat, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't have primary opposition next time around.
The legislature just went through a slightly similar bill last year, but not looking at higher ed, looking at K through 12, saying, well, you know, teachers have to be completely neutral in what they're teaching and show all viewpoints. And that bill got into trouble because Scott Baldwin said, oh, you know, you have to teach about Nazism. And of course, they then walked that back and all of that, and he apologized. And the bill kind of got, I mean, it kind of got weakened after that, basically. This feels very similar to that conversation. Why is this one sailing through with much less opposition?
Well, I think it's really interesting how none of the people that Ann just mentioned, you know, all of the higher ed folks and all the officials testified in the first half, because I think they were working with Senator Deary behind the scenes, actually enshrining more protections for tenure. And Senator Deary actually made a really good point of, if you want to kick a beehive, you can start talking about tenure in higher education. But I think there are some protections in this bill that weren't in the K through 12 one. Now, whether those protections will work is yet to be seen. I know he spent a lot of time talking about the scholarly aspect of it. So to your point, you think you'd be hard-pressed to find actual scholarly, peer-reviewed articles that say that slavery was a benefit to black people.
Or they're putting it in the curriculum in Florida. I bet you'll find
Okay, and
somebody.
that's another thing. People say this is another Florida-Texas bill. It's not. Those bills are absolutely eliminating tenure. This bill actually enshrines tenure, and
it
all
doesn't. Tenure doesn't need to be
there's very
enshrined.
little protections in code for tenure for higher education professors
It's in their
right now.
contracts, okay? It's in their contracts for
I know,
tenure.
but it's not in the code, so I don't see anything
Why
wrong
do we
with that.
need it in the
and all you're
code?
adding is the intellectual diversity, right? I mean, you mentioned the K through 12 bill. This actually reminds me a lot of the ESG bill from a couple years ago, where it just says take into account fiscal responsibility and not social, political things when it comes to investing in money. I don't understand what the whole hoopla is about just saying you need to present intellectual diversity and make sure you're presenting more than one. Like, if you're against that, it makes me think there's an alternative motive there.
It's all ideas, no matter how far-fetched they are.
John,
okay? That's the problem.
Something that Deary said on the Senate floor when he was presenting the bill for passage in that chamber struck me, because it's something we talk about here on the show a lot, which is the idea of perception being reality. That if this Pew study is to be believed, that if conservative students feel like they're not welcomed or their views aren't welcomed, even if that's not the case in a literal sense, the fact that they perceive that means that it is a problem that needs to be addressed.
Do you don't know that, though. You didn't have one conservative student come forward and say he felt uncomfortable. You only have Deary's word that they're out there somewhere.
Well, no, but you do have this study. You do, it is, but in this case,
a diversity of ideas is not always called for or warranted. You know why? Sometimes there are right ideas and that are accurate, and sometimes there are ideas that are wrong and dangerous. And we hire people who are intelligent, who have a proven track record as scholars and academics. We give them tenure. They have done wonderful things for the state of Indiana. Leave well enough alone is what I would say.
They ain't broke.
But thank goodness Bob Knight isn't around to see this. He would have had to spend half the time with his team playing man-to-man and the other half playing zone, because there's two ways to look at that issue. No one's to say one's right and one's wrong. But we hired Bob Knight to coach the team in a way he thought best. I mean, let's face it. The General Assembly has never, well, I won't say never, has not understood the higher education in Indiana, certainly has not understood the role of R1 institutions, Carnegie, R1 research institutions. And I don't want to be, I'm overgeneralizing. There has not been an appreciation on the part of the General Assembly, as long as I've been around, for what those institutions do.
There's a part of the bill that I think is kind of flown under the radar a little bit, though. Greg Taylor on the Senate floor went at it with Deary quite a bit on this part of it, which was looking at those same surveys. The group of students who are even more feel even more unwelcome are African American students, and the bill changes the wording in code from minority students to underrepresented students. Now, that obviously incorporates African American students, because they are underrepresented in many cases throughout higher education, unfortunately, at not every school, certainly. But do you think that's a part of the bill that needs to get a little more attention, or do you think that really is just a linguistic, not a big deal kind of change?
I mean, they could probably tweak it a little. Obviously it still covers students of various minority, not just black students, but whatever it may be. And the reason they're changing it is to include conservatives too, let's be honest. Look, I will point out that several people noted to me this week that a couple years ago, when minority students, for instance, felt uncomfortable, or white students were feeling uncomfortable in high schools because we were talking about diversity, the legislature jumped in. So some people are saying, look, this is like reverse DEI, right? Like for conservatives. And I think that's interesting. The other part about it that is, by taking alumni board trustee appointments away and giving it to the legislature, I mean, that's another big part of it that's getting some significant pushback beyond just the diversity of thought section.
I do want to.
Also, I just wanted to note it too. All these universities have have processes for this. There are
Right.
complaints. If students feel, look, and it's one thing to say, I feel uncomfortable. Like if a professor is literally belittling a student or making him feel like they can't speak up, that should be pointed out and complained to the university.
And dealt with.
And those all have processes to do that already.
I did want to. I want to spend a little more time just on this one real quick, because you bring up the point about taking appointments away from alumni associations and giving them to the legislature. And so Senator Taylor again was saying, well, you're only giving it to the majority, the Senate, President Pro Tem, and the Speaker of the House. Why not give also appointments to the minority leaders? And the answer was, well, we don't want to make it political. How can you, with a straight face, say we are going to take it away from alumni associations and give it to politically elected leaders, and it's not political?
And they're also changing the composition. Now you only have to have, you can have whatever the number is, 9 of one sex and only 1 of another. And I can just imagine that they're going to have 9 women on the Purdue board next time around, I'm sure.
Do you think the we're trying to make it less political argument flies on that part of it?
I mean, the whole bill, right, is trying to make it less political in a way, right? I mean, you're saying that, conservatives are being chastised on college campuses, so let's bring it back in the center where they're more comfortable. On that aspect in particular, I know that the bill provision says, with the advisement of the minority leader, so I guess the priority there is to make sure we don't, add more to the trustee board that's not already there. But to your point that...
The Republicans have controlled those boards for the last 20 years. If this is such a big problem out there, why hasn't it been dealt with?
Eric Holcomb, not a real conservative.
As the only person here who graduated from Indiana University on this panel, let me just say, I attended class on occasion. I went to a lot of classes and I had a lot of professors. There were arch conservative professors who made no bones about it. There were avowed communists. Bernie Morris, Marxism after Marx. I didn't get a very good grade in the class. I didn't agree with him, but I appreciated his views. I appreciated the views of the conservatives. Thank goodness there was that robust exchange of views.
You also have the choice, not only of which school to go to, but which professor to take.
Sometimes.
And these large institutions.
Sometimes. I mean, when you're just trying to get a class in, sometimes you don't have that kind of choice.
You have to be willing to get up to go to 8:30 class, too.
And I was simply unwilling to do that, Andy.
Apparently.
All right, time now for viewer feedback. Each week we pose an unscientific online poll question. And this week's question is higher education unwelcoming to conservative views? A, yes, or B, no. Last week we asked you whether Victoria Spartz's about-face on running for re-election will hurt her with voters. 73% of you say yes, 27% say no. If you'd like to take part in the poll, go to WFYI.org/IWIR and look for the poll. Well, whether Southern Indiana egg farmer John Rust will appear on the U.S. Senate Republican primary ballot this spring is now in the hands of the state Supreme Court. The court heard arguments Monday on Rust's lawsuit challenging the state's ballot access law. There are 2 ways an Indiana candidate can run in a Republican or Democratic primary. They must have voted in that party's primary in the last 2 primary elections in which they cast a ballot, or they have to get the permission of the county party leader where they live. John Rust doesn't meet those requirements. He voted in the 2016 GOP primary but cast Democratic ballots before that, and his local party leader refuses to allow him access. An attorney for the state argued the ballot access law makes things clearer for voters by keeping ballots uncluttered and showing affiliation with a political party. Supreme Court Justice Christopher Goff sounded skeptical.
I'm really having a difficult time understanding how voter confusion is alleviated by precluding a choice between 2 candidates.
But Justice Mark Massa suggested political parties should get to choose who runs in their primaries.
I wanted to associate with the most popular girl in high school, but she had a say in it. Doesn't the party here have some say in who associates with it?
Late in the week, the Supreme Court issued a stay of the trial court's ruling, meaning it paused the order that ensures Rust remains on the ballot. Chris Mitchem, just how bad a sign for Rust is that stay of the trial court's ruling?
Yeah, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, it's definitely probably going to be a lot of saved time and money if he isn't going to be on that, considering he's already pumped millions into his campaign. And, I mean, with all due respect to Mr. Rust, when you have, a Trump endorsement on the bank side as well as a state GOP party on that side, getting into the race, certainly was heroic, but the chances would be low. But in all honesty, I don't think this ruling from the Supreme Court is surprising, just from a general judicial review, even in a lot of the discussions you heard in the judge's they had a hard time even considering what harm is this? Is it the First Amendment? Is this this amendment? Or we're talking about strict review, or there was just a lot of kind of uncertainty. So I don't think this ruling was shocking in that aspect, but I think this would have a more impact on future situations where this would come up. I think it would have a much more longer impact on that one versus this race where he was kind of already facing an uphill battle.
The trial court ruling said Indiana's ballot access law is unconstitutional for like 5 different reasons. And now the court is saying, let's just put that opinion on hold while we take a little more time to issue our ruling. Is it fair to say that it seems like that ruling is going to be that the ballot access law is just fine?
I don't know. I mean, I think there are some problems with the ballot access law. The fact that a county chair who is not even an elected official by the state of Indiana can determine who is or isn't on the ballot is a little, the argument the state made, I assume it was somebody from the AG's office, but the argument the state made really was kind of nonsensical. It's too confusing to have names on the ballot, basically, for the average voter. Yeah, I mean, okay, I think they can determine between 2 choices which one they want. And the idea that they have to save the voters from having too much of a choice in an election is kind of problematic too, especially since you've got, 5 candidates for governor, and they don't seem concerned about that?
6 candidates for governor on the Republican side. To Chris's point, in the long term, I think the Supreme Court's ruling will have a much larger effect, or at least certainly what we expect the ruling will be. In the short term, it's now really in the hands of the Election Commission. It feels like they're not going to keep John Rust on the ballot, given that generally if you don't meet these 2 things under the law, that's the ballgame.
Yeah, 2 years ago, the Election Commission voted on a number of these 2 primary challenges where they
because that was the first election I think that there was in effect.
Even though it's 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, they stuck straight with the law, ruling against candidates of both sides in uniform. Now, if they do 2-2 tie, then Rust would stay on the ballot.
John, we talked before about the issue of the ballot access law in general. Is the reality of this that parties should be able to choose who gets to run in their primaries?
I mean, that sort of is at the core, the notion that we have a 2-party system. I guess we could even, where do you want to start the debate? Do you want to go all the way back to, should we have a 2-party system, or should we go to a more parliamentary system? But as long as we have 2-party systems, you have to have some mechanism, I presume, that allows the party faithful to pick the people they want. There's no perfect solution. You could argue that the presidential primary process does not produce the candidates that represent the views necessarily of the bulk of the party because of the way it's structured and the activism that you see at the primary level. So I mean, if the question is, I don't know the legalities or the morality or the philosophical aspect, but I think to your point earlier, the fact that there's a pause now indicates that there will likely to be an overruling.
And even to the point you just made, I think we saw the justices during the arguments on Monday this week kind of struggle with the idea of, okay, maybe this isn't great, but what else do we have in a state where you do not register as a Republican or a Democrat?
There was a point made that Republicans don't have to have a public primary. They, like libertarians do, can just do it all in the convention if they want, and then 1,200 or 1,300 people are the only ones who get their say. So, they're trying to find kind of a middle ground. It's still public, but the major parties still get to have some say over who represents them.
That makes sense if you do the primaries. If you haven't voted in a Democratic primary in whatever period of time, you can do that by statute. But the idea that somebody who is not an elected official in the normal sense of the term can determine, he can bypass that.
But that's the backup. You're
but that's only the
on
backup.
if
But
you
that's the
voted in
backup.
the primary.
It also gives that person an awful lot of power that the statute doesn't give them.
If you vote in the primaries, you don't have a problem.
Well, I agree with that, but not the other.
All right. The U.S. House this week impeached Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas by a single vote, making him the first cabinet secretary to be impeached in more than a century.
Republicans say they impeached Mayorkas for willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law in enforcing border policy and breaching public trust. 3 Republicans joined every Democrat in voting against it. The Biden administration said the impeachment was done without a shred of evidence or legitimate constitutional grounds. Indiana's House delegation voted along party lines. The 7 Republicans voted in favor, the 2 Democrats opposed. The process now shifts to the democratically controlled Senate, where it's extremely unlikely Mayorkas will be convicted and removed from office.
Niki Kelly, does impeachment mean anything anymore?
I mean, it's definitely losing the power that it used to have. We use it as a political tool against each other, and both sides do it. I'm not, saying anything against either side. The fact is that even, I guess the only time a cabinet member has been impeached, 1876.
Yeah, under U.S.
And they did not convict him
right.
because, and when we have these small margins in the Senate, why are we wasting the time and effort? You're not getting 2/3.
So is it really purely at this point, until unless one of the parties has more than 2/3 control of the United States Senate, is this purely a political tool?
Sure, it is. But that's all we're seeing a lot of. I mean, that's essentially what we're seeing in Congress now, at least on the Republican side of the equation. You look at the impeachment proceedings and investigation about the president. You see this. That's not going to go anywhere as long as there's a Democrat-controlled Senate. Now, I'm not saying they don't have the right to do it. I mean, sometimes bringing something to light is important. But if you look at the hard, cold realities of political the mathematics of it, it ain't going to happen.
After Donald Trump was impeached twice while he was president, now we have Republicans impeaching Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, and not yet Joe Biden, though they've certainly a significant chunk of that caucus has been trying to do that since they took control. How do voters view this at this point?
I mean, I think the first thing you got to remind them is the whole point of impeaching somebody is they committed a high crime in their office and they should be removed from office. It started back in the Trump with the Democrats, unfortunately, when, he did a lot of stuff they didn't like, but did he commit a high crime? The Senate said that he didn't. The same goes for Secretary Mayorkas as well. He did not commit a high crime. So if you're a Republican, you're kind of stuck in 2 headsets of, one, you can keep doing the impeaching if the Democrats keep doing the impeaching as an idea of mutually assured destruction, right? Or you could try to be the bigger man in the room and say, let's just not do this and hope that the Democrats stop impeaching people because they disagree with them, which with the current temperature, I imagine the mutually assured destruction one is probably the way to go.
At this point, if a voter is looking at this, you just go, oh, okay, they impeached that guy. All right. It's a statement. It's a statement of unhappiness.
Okay. The average voter doesn't even know who he is. Okay. Yeah. And he clearly didn't commit any high crime or misdemeanor. So, and I would disagree with you. I think Trump did when he was in office. But you're right. Without 2/3, you can't convict.
All right. With the first half of the session now firmly in the rearview mirror, one bill that didn't advance this session was a measure to increase the speed limit on Indiana interstates and highways to 75 miles per hour, up from 70 in rural areas. But Republican Representative Ben Schmaltz acknowledged that his bill, which only got a hearing in a House committee, is just the start of a conversation that could last until next session.
Schmaltz says improvements in cars and their technology is prompting the discussion.
We have sensors. The steering is so much tighter. The cars are so much better. The engineering is so much better.
Toby Randolph is a civil engineer representing the American Council of Engineering Companies. He says increasing speed limits should be a data-driven decision. He points to a study out of Michigan, which raised speed limits on some freeways to 75 miles per hour in 2017.
Generally coincided with increases in both frequency and severity of crashes.
The Indiana Department of Transportation also testified against the bill, noting that average speeds have increased every year since 2018.
John Schwantes, can this idea eventually make it to the finish line?
Eventually.
2 car puns.
Yes, that is very impressive. I think the key word in your question is eventually. Not this session, but there's no speed limit on how fast this bill can travel, of course, so maybe down the line. I mean, let's look at the realities of it. I mean, at what point does legislation and statutory, regulatory, that environment catch up with what people are actually doing? I think it's already safe to say that the vast majority of Hoosiers and people who use our roadways are probably driving the 75 anyway.
So that's the thing. So, INDOT pointed out that the average speeds have been going up pretty steadily since 2018. We saw particularly a spike after COVID. So everyone, after the stay-at-home order, the roads were way more empty. And so people started driving faster, and then all the drivers came back on the roadways, and we just kept going the same speeds, I guess. Is the average Hoosier going to go, oh, we need to raise the speed limit beyond what it already is?
I remember when we went from 65 to 70, it was like such a big deal. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are already going this. One thing I found most interesting from that hearing was INDOT being very strongly against it. Lots of times agencies kind of stay out of that kind of thing, say we just implement the law, and for them to come out so strongly against it was significant.
Real quick, Chris.
And all I'll add was there was actually a bill last year that would permit like large semi-trucks from going from 65 to 70, and the Truckers Association came out and said we don't want to go faster because that sounds like higher insurance premiums.
And that is an important point. All right, that's Indiana Week in Review for this week. Our panel is Democrat Ann DeLaney, Republican Chris Mitchem, John Schwantes of Indiana Lawmakers, and Niki Kelly of the Indiana Capital Chronicle. You can find Indiana Week in Review's podcast and episodes at WFYI.org/IWIR or on the PBS app. I'm Brandon Smith of Indiana Public Broadcasting. Join us next time, because a lot can happen in an Indiana week.
The opinions expressed are solely those of the panelists. Indiana Week in Review is a WFYI production in association with Indiana's public broadcasting stations.